I'm Tom Kiesche, and you're listening to The Animal Agenda. Our guest for this episode is Katya Lidsky, a freelance, certified trauma-informed breathwork facilitator and creative grief coach who supports shelter staff, rescues, volunteers, and veterinary teams with wellness practices. Today, we're going to be chatting about, I guess things related to being a CTIBF CGC. It just sort of rolls off your tongue, doesn't it? A little background I've learned. Katya is a former certified positive reinforcement-based dog trainer. It's only getting easier. And a recovering former actress. She's been a senior dog foster mom, and she's been an animal shelter volunteer at several systems for over 15 years. And let me just say, she's been a senior dog foster mom for many, many different dogs. She's also a professional writer. So let me get some disclaimers out. I'm speaking and asking questions as an individual in my own individual capacity. I've been a volunteer in many systems, but again, my own capacity. Since meeting Katya a couple months ago, we've had several conversations, and I've participated in a few guided breathwork exercises with her. We've also chatted a bunch about writing. Hello, Katya.
Hi, Tom.
Thanks for coming on.
Hearing all those things, I'm like, that's a windy path I've been on. I mean, it's just the truth.
Is there anything that you would like to add or subtract or fine tune in that little intro?
No, I mean, just if I had a time machine on my own life, sure. But if for the sake of this show, no, it's the facts.
Okay. Before we get into it, I have to say one last thing. If anyone's driving and we happen to do any breath work or relaxation during this interview, do not close your eyes or relax beyond what is safe. Remember, you can always earmark this interview and find it later. Okay, let's start with the basics. What the heck is breath work? And more specifically, what is a certified trauma-informed breathwork facilitator and creative grief coach?
Oh, God, there's so much to say there. Okay, so breathwork is, I like to think of it as active meditation for us, like herding dog type of minds. You know, when you like sit and meditate and it's like try to not have thoughts or just notice the thoughts or detach from the thoughts. It's great. But breathwork is sort of gives you something to do. So you sustain a pattern of breathing or you just pay attention to your natural breathing. But it's uber focused on the breath and a lot of breath manipulation. In order to get there by kind of giving yourself a task that the byproduct of the task of breathing is just naturally going to calm you down. The cool thing about breath work, though, that I like so much is that you can use it and apply it based on like whatever intention you have. So sometimes I work with people who want to feel joy or they want to work on their immune system, or they want to do a bonding thing for like a bachelorette party with their, 5 best friends. My point is like, it's an experience that is going to change scientifically, is going to change the oxygen and carbon dioxide levels in your body. So you're going to feel sensations. And then sort of like emotionally or mentally, you're going to have an experience, but you do that. You get to decide. And I just sort of am there for you.
So it's just breathing.
It is just breathing. And sometimes it can just be that. It can just be like sitting and being with your breath. And other times it can be, there's like big ones where you're like 45 minutes doing a really activated pulse breath. I would not recommend that as like a starting spot. But my point being that it's one of those sort of, it's a somatic modality. So it happens in the body first. It's a physical experience. You're literally changing the way you naturally breathe all the time. So you, Tom, your body is made for stasis. All of our bodies are. So you are breathing right now the way you normally naturally breathe all the time, a way that you're used to that supports how you feel comfortable, whether or not it's good for you. And so when you do breath work, you are changing that on purpose. You're manipulating that on purpose based on something that you want to either create or cultivate or let go of or find or release or put a bunch of different verbs in there. You're going to feel it in your body first. And then the mind is going to catch up, which we hardly get to do anymore. We're so mind focused. We're so thought oriented that I think that's what I love the most about it. what makes it trauma informed is a program. The program that I did was very intense and had like 6 months to it with a practicum and all these hours, which I did my practicum hours at local shelters and with rescue groups, because that's the community that I love is animal people. But I think the reason that my teacher is always like, you have to say trauma informed. What that means is basically like, you don't want to offer somebody a wellness modality that's going to re-trigger them in any way. So it's on a facilitator to know how small little dosages.
So let me pick up on something you said. You've had an education on this work. Can you mention the school? Do you feel comfortable doing that? And again, can you hit again about the amount of training that you had?
Yeah, it was a little over 6 months program. So the woman who runs it, her name is Samantha Scally. She's amazing. She's really, really a wonderful person. And the program is called PAWS, not PAWS. Sorry, Tom, but PAUSE. Although maybe it should be both. And yeah, there's therapists who teach. There's all sorts of people who make up the program. So it's not just woo-woo, although there's a fair dose of woo-woo too. That's why I joined.
I want to touch on something again. I'm kind of going off of questions and also just kind of picking up on what you're saying. You use the word pause, PAUSE.
Yeah.
And I had an experience. Well, I had a lot of experience every day, but in the last 24 hours, I've had a lot of experiences. 2 dogs that I helped take out yesterday are now red listed for euthanasia. I found out 4 dogs at one shelter I volunteer were euthanized. One I knew very well that was super happy in its kennel. Another one that was super shy in its kennel. One that I wanted to take out, but I just didn't have time to take out. And another one that I never even saw in a kennel. I got a bunch of emails, questions, and phone calls about all different shelter things. I've been on the phone about those different dogs, and I heard from somebody that adopted a dog through me years ago that apparently sent me a note through someone else saying that every time their dog hears my voice on a video, the dog perks up and is really happy. And then to top it all off, this couple adopted 2 seniors who no one thought were going to get out. They were the pets of someone who died, and they didn't have a plan, and they ended up at the shelter. With all that said, PAUSE, PAUSE. One of the dogs yesterday was so amped up in its kennel that they were having trouble getting a leash on the dog. And all I did, and I've told you about this, that I tell new volunteers all the time, sometimes you just have to breathe in front of the kennel. And I took 20, 30, 40 seconds of just breathing, standing next to the dog calmly. And then the dog stopped jumping and went on to all 4 paws and then relaxed. And then I took a knee and breathed, and the dog was relaxed. And I opened the door, and the dog came out like a shot. But then I stood with the dog and a leash in the middle of the gauntlet or the kennels, and we just stood there as I breathed until the dog sat down. We walked 20 feet, took another pause, and then the dog sat down. So I thought that's a perfect time to get into that. I wanted you on the show because I often say to new volunteers, you have to control your breath, but I don't have time to explain what that means. Can you explain kind of what I did with that dog?
Yeah, I mean, my brain is lighting up. There's a lot of things I want to say. And one I don't think we've ever talked about before, but I think what you offered that dog is, and maybe it's a term it's called co-regulation. So co-regulation is when a nervous system is soothed, regulated, balanced, the edges are sort of melted and softened in the presence of somebody else who's holding that space for them. So I do breath work with my dogs for that exact same feeling, because in that moment, we are on the same wavelength. We are helping each other. And it's beyond something that I can measure or actually explain in like some sort of fancy terms, other than, I think with two people, it's more obvious. Your therapists do it. Good Reiki healers do it. This is what they do. They co-regulate with you. They're in the process with you, but they're not emotionally absorbing what you're feeling. They're just creating a container and a space for you to feel in their presence, so that when you feel fully in the presence of that person who's co-regulating with you, if I can say this, hopefully it'll make sense. There's like a space where what you wouldn't want is to then find another energy that is amped up, sad, worried, or taking on the same frequency, because what it means is that your state never ends. When you co-regulate, when someone is offering that to you, you're feeling the fullness of whatever is going on for you. And then there's a place where it ends, and there's Tom. He can feel you giving something else. If you would have been amped up, if you would have been freaking out, would have been the worst thing for him, because his imbalance would have never ended, if that makes sense. So I guess what I want to say is what you did was offer a dog co-regulation, in my opinion. And I think the reason that I am excited about breath work in this particular community is because I think breath work should be done everywhere. But if you can control your breath, then you are controlling your nervous system, which is like the highway that goes from the top of your head down of your the input. It's literally the highway of your processing everything that's going on inside and out. And it is kept in check and assessed through the breath. So how can a dog trust you? How can an animal who doesn't know you bet on you when you're taking them out if you're not even fully there? You're not aware of your breath. You're not there. You're like there, but checking your phone or thinking about something that happened in that phone call, and they know. Just like when a dog walker walks one dog versus walking 4 dogs, they'll tell you the same thing. All the dogs are different. They'll walk one dog, it goes one way. 4 dogs, they're all being punks, because they all can tell that the energy is split, the attention is compromised, and what can they get away with? And they do. That was a long-winded answer, and I'm not sure I answered the question.
You totally got it. So okay. Co-regulation just rolls off the tongue as well as all the other things in the beginning. Is there any other way that it's referred to other than co-regulation?
Is there any other way that it's referred to? I mean, I have a lot of ways to refer to it, but
give me a woo-woo way, because saying co-regulation to a new volunteer, trying to teach them 100 other things at the same time, that technical term is not going to land.
Here's what I think it is, woo or not. I think when you are focusing on your breath with an animal, you're immediately speaking to the best part of that animal. No matter how they're behaving, no matter what they're giving you, you're treating them and speaking to them as the version of them that everybody hopes they're going to be. That's what you do when you come to them calm and collected, and it doesn't mean you don't have feelings and thoughts and you're a real person, but that you can acknowledge it, regulate it, balance yourself, stay with yourself, and not be taken. Allows you to, first of all, it allows that animal a great sense of safety. And second of all, it allows you to treat that dog or cat, whatever, no matter what they're giving off. It allows you to treat them as the highest potential that they can be.
So I often tell folks, if you show me a calm dog, I'll show you a calm owner. If you show me a frantic dog, I'll show you a frantic owner. Yeah. And if you show me a dog that hates men, I'll show you an owner that's uncomfortable around men. Mm-hmm. And it's just that empathy is so high with animals. And would you say that's the same with breath work, that they not only do they pick up on your feelings, but they pick up on your heart rate and your breath rate?
Yes, I think, and thank you for bringing up heart rate, because yes, your heart rate is affected. And also so this is woo woo, but also fact. Every, emotion has like a hormonal charge that comes with it, right? So when you're stressed, there's more cortisol. When you, watch a horror film, there's an adrenaline rush. And animals, their sensory system, their nose system, their sensory receptors, I think it's the numbers I've read 40 times more than ours. I've read up to 500. It's not consistent what's out there in terms of like, what exactly is it? How much more deeply intricate are their structures? But they can pick up on what we feel based on the smell of the hormone that we release. So we're not lying to them if we're scared or anxious and I do agree with you that I think it's empathy, but I think dogs are also, they get in sync with us. And I don't know if it's mirroring or if it's a survival instinct or if it's empathy or if it's the fact that they are what we do breath work for. They are present. They don't carry around a like long list of all the things that they did wrong and their regrets of the past. And they don't carry around all the plans that they're going to make in the future. They're here.
So in my 24-hour recap of volunteering with animals, there was a lot of grief in decisions, grief in actions, grief in death, grief in many, many things. How can what you do inform someone like me or someone in rescue or someone with their own pet? How can you help them get through grief or just level it out more?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question and it's a good question because we all carry grief. The truth is that I think breathwork is particularly beautiful around grief work because there is no fixing grief. There is no fixing the things that we long for or miss or beings that we're never going to see again. There's nothing to do. And so if you're willing to believe that pain or discomfort or anger or sadness or combination or things I haven't even named has something to teach you, has something to say, has value, that there can be a different meaning made around the loss, I believe it can be found when you make the space and time for it. And I think that that's what breathwork does. It's just a place where you go or, on your computer. You can get them for free on Insight Timer, which is a great app, mental health app. And there's all these ways that you can access breathwork. So that you can create that space and time to just feel it, to just be with it. That is what it can do for you. And that's what it needs.
Your Instagram handle is Life Coach for Dog People. And on that, you occasionally post quotes, whether they're your quotes or other people's quotes. I think they're mostly yours. But you had one quote that was, euthanized pets equal grief over injustice. You want to tell me what that means?
Well, I think that I know that there's a lot of versions of grief, and I believe that people have their own. What I meant by grief over injustice is just that I think that there's one thing to be sad over the loss of their lives, which is bad enough. And it's another thing to be sad about the idea of a system that just doesn't exist. And to mourn that idea that sense of justice just isn't available. And that maybe it could be, maybe I know it should be, but it's not. I find that to be equally sad.
You have another quote. What happens to displaced, stuck energy? You can look at the animals for that answer. Grief can shrink us into a tiny dot if we don't make room for it. Do you want to take that one?
Yeah. I hate to hear my own words. Well, all emotions are meant to move, right? They're energy and motion. So I think we lack capability to let them move, most people. And when they don't get to move and they're stuck, a lot of problems are created in a person. And I think sometimes when I walk the halls of a shelter and I see these animals stuck and all that just kinetic energy that just wants to move and it wants to run and it wants to smell, it wants to be out. I feel it so deeply. And I think that's why. It's not because I've thankfully never been stuck behind bars or chained or not able to move, but I know what it is to have something in me that wants to go and it has nowhere to go.
There's a quote that's been attributed to Bruce Lee and Warren Buffett and another 2 or 3 people. But when you look up the quote through research, it says it's best to just say it's anonymous. And I'll read you the whole quote, but really it's the 6 last words that I want to focus on. You will continue to suffer if you have an emotional reaction to everything that is said to you. True power is sitting back and observing everything with logic. If words control you, that means everyone else can control you. These are the last 6 words. Breathe and allow things to pass. You want to go more with that?
No, I mean, you basically summed up what my whole 6-month program was for, because it is like, it is that simple. I'm not saying it's easy, but it is. Here's the thing. It's so bananas that we think otherwise. So you're born, you take a breath, and then there's this in the background of your life, you're breathing all the time. This thing's happening for you. You're not thinking about it. Most of us, you're not having to do anything. It's just happening for you. And it's so taken for granted that we don't even really care until we're dying and we think maybe we won't be able to breathe anymore. And what I think is very interesting and what I'm currently really drawn to is the idea of like, oh, we want all this abundance. We want money and we want success and we want love and lovers and clothes and we want to save them all. There's always an all. There's always so much more. But you can take more breaths than usual. You can breathe deeper and already have that. You already have all these breaths. You already have this thing that's so abundant. That's why you're here and nobody cares. And I don't understand. We don't get what we want. We get what we are.
So we have this instrument within our body that we can utilize to change our disposition or feelings or homeostasis or how we influence others. And it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't require any outside equipment if we're healthy. And yet most of us don't use it to its fullest capabilities. That's
right. That's right. And breath work, meditation, mindful walking, there's a number of things. Breathwork is just a modality that I like because I tend to move fast and be sort of a blur. And so I need something to do. But there's so many others, but all of these approaches offer physical benefits like lowering your heart rate, improving sleep, lowering blood pressure. They also offer emotional benefits like processing emotions, getting in touch with yourself, acknowledging feelings, things coming up that you maybe have been suppressing or didn't know were there, ignoring. There's spiritual benefits, faith in something bigger than you. Even you don't have to call it God. You can call it whatever you want. It can be Bono. He's awesome. He's hot. My point is like, there is this thing that happens when you are betting on the invisible, when you're saying, everything's out here that I see and everyone's telling me it's more important. And what if I turn off all of that and I focus on my breath and I'm with what's invisible? What would happen? What would I gain here? And I really, really do think it will change a life because everything's there. And everything that we're chasing out there is fleeting and never ending. And so when we're in an inherently stressful and difficult, hard environment like an animal shelter, you're just being bopped around in pain. And there's hope, and there's like the best in people as well alongside the worst in people. But there's so much chaos and drama, and there's so much to see and hear and smell and feel and touch. It's so, there's so much overstimulating.
Okay. So I was going to wait till the end for this, but let's just talk about it right now.
Okay.
We're in a kennel, you and I, and you're my mentor and I'm brand new and I'm overwhelmed. It's overwhelming, the smells, the sounds, things that you mentioned. Can we right now do a 1-2 minute breathwork exercise to center my breath? Because I am crazy right now.
Right. I would say, okay. Yeah. I would say, Tom, would you be willing to close your eyes and just wherever you are right now, I'm right here next to you. Would you just close your eyes and take a few breaths and just notice where your breath is?
So before we get into this, let me just say, if you're driving, don't relax too far and don't close your eyes. And just, Katya, speak to all of us. Put us all through this.
No pressure. I'd say don't do this if you're driving.
Just say it. Don't say what you'd say. Just say it.
Okay. So feel your feet on the floor and feel your pinky toe, the next one, the middle one, the one by the thumb, the big toe. And now feel your heel on this cold concrete floor. Even in your shoes, you know it's underneath your shoes. This hard floor that soft bodies lay on. And then I'm going to ask you to take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale out your mouth. And you can let that be silent or you can make noise, whatever feels good for you. And to maybe sense if in the back of your neck, back of your head, there's tingling or emotion or embarrassment, or you want to run away from here, or there's a feeling, or maybe there's nothing. And what would it be like to just send a breath there? And what if when you were sending a breath there to soothe that feeling in yourself, you were also inviting all these animals around to catch that wave? What if they could borrow your wave? And so that maybe just breathing and being still and feeling does something for you and your awareness, but it also creates something here for all these animals. And then I'm going to ask you to open your eyes and come back. And I'd probably start there before introducing any fancy breath work, but just the notion of getting in touch with that.
So just that little short exercise puts people in a more present state of mind, and they could do that, run themselves through that, just standing in front of a dog or an animal or cat or whatever they're volunteering with, or at home, and just to bring their heart rate down to a more manageable, comfortable, relaxed pace.
Yeah. And I want to say, as if we're in the kennel, Tom, if you feel like, hey, I'm not ready for this yet, that's okay. And if you feel like, oh, I need you to stay with me while I walk my first couple of dogs, I got you. I think giving people the permission to not be ready or to ask for what they need is really, really important. And I think it's actually a quicker way to get people to be able to do more.
I agree 100%. I'm all for mentoring and people working together, supporting each other.
And I know you mentor a lot, so it's working. What you're doing is working.
What about, let's say you have a cat and the cat knocks something off the thing and it was your favorite vase, or your dog poops in the house because you were out too long. How can breath work not only help you, but your animal and your relationship?
Yeah. Actually, this happened just today. We adopted a dog about a year ago who is a hound mix with healer or cattle dog or something. I don't know what she has, something crazy. She jumped on the table again, which is fine. Like, she jumps on stuff, but there was like food, and I was immediately, my first response, subconscious programming, my childhood, who knows why? Because I am who I am. I'm anxious. I don't know. But my first response was to want to scream at her. And I was like, Libby. I did. I raised my voice and I said, Libby. And then I stopped and I took a breath and I thought, oh, how do I feel? And I said out loud, I feel completely out of control when you're on the table. I feel totally out of control. Like everything's not going my way just because you're on the table. I need you to be on the ground. Now, she's a dog, did not understand all my words. But the point is this: we spend so much of our lives outsourcing what we need. That, I believe. We do it to our kids. We do it to our partners. We do it to our animals. We do it to our friends, teachers, fill in the blank. We outsource what we need. And we get mad that people did, or animals didn't read our mind or didn't do it the way we wanted. And so often, I think if we just give ourselves what we need, then it's like they don't have to see and hear. I'm a very spiritual person. I'm not particularly religious, but I'm spiritual, and I find the time with an old dog to be very holy and sacred. And there's something about not having expectations about how long it's going to go, or all the things we come to dogs for or want from them. All of that's gone. It's just this old bag of bones, and you get to know them and you get to make them comfortable, and they just get to be this calm, grateful presence in your house. And then you have to trust your intuition and your gut, whatever communication is going on between you, to know when it's time for them to go. And all of that is so silent, and it's boring. It's hard. And it's not sexy. It's not on Instagram. No, you don't look cute doing it. Nobody cares. No one's going to give you money or an award for it. And I love that. I have no agenda. I want nothing from it but to be with them. That is the purest thing I do.
I have several friends that have senior horses, senior cats, senior dogs that they have taken in as seniors. And they all seem to say the same thing. And that's sort of what you said right before I was ready to cut you off there, that no regrets, and that it's one of the most beautiful, satisfying things that they ever do.
Yeah. I love it.
Which is really ironic with the amount of people that surrender animals that are getting older. They're cheating themselves from one of the most amazing things they could learn about themselves. They could learn more about life and love and feelings. And yet they're cheating their animal of that, but they're also cheating themselves of that and their family of that.
Absolutely. It makes me think of I remember when I was younger, I had a friend whose mom had cancer, and I remember being really scared like to talk to her about it. I call it a superstition. It made me feel like something was going to happen to my mom. It was silly, but I didn't want to be close to it. And I don't say that with any pride. I'm not happy that I was that way, but I'm being honest that I was that way. It was in my early 20s and I was just scared. I was uncomfortable being that close to something that would cause me so much pain to watch someone that I loved suffer. My point is only like, I have great compassion for people who think I can't be close to that. I have to go the other way. I've been that person. And that's actually that's very good news. It's very good news if you're that person, because it means you're here and you have this other place to go where you can get close to something that scares you or that feels gross, ugly, too much, too real. And that movement from here to there, everything you want is right there. Every juicy thing about your life is going to happen as you move up to it. So it's great. It's exciting. You're on your way now. Like Freebird, the journey up.
Like a Dr. Seuss book. How about, do you have a favorite quote? And it can be about anything.
My favorite quote is from Thich Nhat Hanh. He said, "To meditate with mindful breathing is to bring body and mind back to the present moment so that you do not miss your appointment with life." I love that quote.
That's a pretty good quote.
Yeah. His books are like, they're hypnotic. You read them and you're like a better person. You're just a better person for 5 days. And then you're back to like, I'm doing all the things that I hate about myself that I do. And then you just like have to go back to the library and get another Thich Nhat Hanh book. He's written many of them.
Or one might say, maybe you should just breathe.
Or just breathe. Yeah.
How about, you mentioned a book. Do you have a favorite animal-related book?
Yes. Calming Signals on Talking Terms with Dogs by Turid Rugrass is my favorite dog book. I feel like there's so many dog books out there that are about like training the dog, getting the dog to do what we want them to do. How do I get the dog to be more convenient for my life is what I read all the time. And I love that book because she's like, this is how dogs are communicating with us. So maybe we could also pay attention. And it's brilliant and simple. And she spent a lot of time studying their communication signals. And I know you've read it. What did you think of that book?
As a person that spends many, many hours with dogs I've never met, and I have to learn them as fast as I can for the safety of myself and to sort of tell the story that I see and to also present them to possible adopters or fosters or rescues. I liked it very much because I say to many people I mentor or that adopt, they're never going to learn to speak English in my lifetime. And I should be willing to try to speak dog and learn what they're saying because they're constantly, every millisecond communicating. And every millisecond we are communicating to them, whether we know it or not. So it only benefits us and them if we're aware of what we're saying and we're also aware of what they're saying.
Yeah. It's very true. And you're right. That's such a great point that they are always communicating. We miss so much of it. There's another book that I actually really like, and I bet you'd love it. It's called Coercion and Its Fallout by a man named Sidman Murray. And it's all about all the ways that using force, punishment, specifically punishment, causes the problems, not only in animals. He talks about prison. He goes through it all. It's a really good book, dense and academic and smart. And I bet you'd love it. And then there's a fiction book I love called We Are All Completely Beside Ourselves by Karen Joy Fowler that I love, 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 love. But that one's about like animal rights more than dogs.
Let's say someone's listening to this and they want to get in touch with you. Is that welcome?
Yes, it's welcome. I like people a lot, unfortunately. I'm not like an animal person who doesn't like people. Like I kind of wish I was. I feel like it would be easier for me, but I really like people. as well. So, that sucks.
How do people get in touch with
you? They can go to my website, KatyaLidsky.com, or Instagram, message me, or Life Coach for Dog People. I don't know if I'm going to stick with that name forever. Why did I pick that name? You know what? I'm sticking with it for now, guys. I'm not going to diss my handle. I am trying to do free breath work or grief support for animal shelter staff, volunteers, and rescuers and vet teams to the best of my ability for as long as I can financially and time management wise do it. It's just a community I want to serve. I want to love you all like you all love the dogs. And I love the dogs. It's not that I don't love the dogs anymore. I just don't think we're going to get to the changes we want without getting to the people.
So I want to pick up on that as I'm sort of closing, but I want to touch on that. I had a conversation about this today with a volunteer who didn't seem to understand the idea of team building. Like they just want to go and they just want to walk dogs and, them, dogs. And my point for years has been, I can only work a couple dogs each time I go. I can only videotape a couple dogs or video record a couple dogs. I can only physically walk dogs for so many hours or so many days. But if I can inspire people to come to the shelter and I can mentor other people to work dogs, to be better handlers and to retain those volunteers for years, then me as one person can walk hundreds of dogs every hour or thousands of dogs every hour. And so I feel like what you're doing is helping people retain their sanity and their emotional well-being to keep them in the game for longer.
Yeah, I definitely, my biggest fear, my biggest worry is that if the only way that we can be well and feel good, and we deserve to be well, we deserve to feel good. If the only way we can do that is to leave the animals because being around them is so overwhelming and so stressful and so intense and emotional, then we're going to always be in this pattern where more people are leaving and new people are starting and we never really move. We're just moving air around. We're just running in one spot because it's always a new crop or the burnout is constant. And I don't understand it as a sustainable model. I also want to say that I think sometimes the act of volunteering regulates people. Like the act of, I'm going to go volunteer and that will give me these things. It's okay for it to give you things. It should. It's okay to be self-serving. It's okay to have needs and meet them. But if the shelter is where we're getting regulated and the animals are regulating us, then who's coming for the animals? Just by taking some breaths, you're already bypassing that. You're already creating an insurance policy where you're regulating yourself and you're showing up to regulate them, which is greatly needed because when you leave the shelter, you can go get food and you can hang out with pals and watch a Netflix show and live a life outside of a kennel, and they can't. So what you bring to them is that outside world. That's what you bring when you show up the next day. So if you bring only more of the shelter, you're not really bringing much. They need you to bring that balanced wellness that's available for them outside.
I mentioned those 24 hours where I went on for a while about all the things within the last 24 hours, and I probably missed a bunch. And the whole reason for that is I feel you have to be able to reset. Because if you don't, you burn out. It's too much. It's crazy. And I want to thank you for doing what you're doing with breathwork, identifying that there's a need for that, and coming on the show to talk about it so more people can regulate through breathwork. Not everyone has the same background of martial arts and actor and Qigong and yoga that I have, that all those practices or being in the present and breathing have helped me. Not everyone has that. So thank you for your messaging, for coming on here, and for giving us some time today.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for everything you do. I know you do it with a full heart and a very present mind. And I think that's why it makes such a big impact. So thank you.
I'm Tom Kiesche, and you're listening to The Animal Agenda. Our guest this episode was Katya Lidsky, a freelance certified trauma-informed breathwork facilitator and creative grief coach who supports shelter staff, rescues, volunteers, and veterinary teams with wellness practices. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Tom.